One moment in life may affect everything else. One minute I was 33, contentedly married, and future planning was underway. My husband's corpse was too injured for an open coffin, hence the next minute I was a widow considering cremation choices. That describes what happened to Jessica. My spouse Adam passed away in a horrible automobile accident 7 months ago. I've been drowning in grief since then and have been trying to make sense of this new, terrible existence. The first several weeks passed as if a dream. Funeral preparations, answering many calls, and restless nights occupied me. I'm not sure how I would have managed it if my parents hadn't assumed most of the funeral responsibilities. "Jessica, honey, we have everything set up with a funeral house," my mother replied softly, more lovingly than I had ever heard her speak. "Right now, you simply pay yourself top attention." My safe spot turned out to be a support group for those bereaved of loved ones. Every Friday night, I sat in a circle among people who knew the great suffering in my chest. Some days are more difficult than others. At one meeting, I remarked, my voice so soft. "Sometimes I forget he's gone only for a moment when I wake up. 3 years ago, Rachel lost her husband. She held my hand lovingly." "That's natural, darling. Grief comes in waves," she remarked gently. Time passed, and I had to handle other things as well. Adam had guaranteed me financial stability. We had a property in the suburbs, an apartment in the city, and some really large savings. Though I could have quit working for the marketing company, the idea of being home alone terrified me. I thus decided to work part-time, just enough to keep me occupied. The most unexpected was how my connection with my parents evolved. I always thought growing up that they were more concerned about Laura, my younger sister. While my grades seldom received a well done, they never missed her dancing recitals or school presentations. But something between us evolved when Adam passed away. I sent $3,000 a month to aid my folks. I hardly considered twice at all. Our weekly meals at their place had become to be something I eagerly anticipated. Mom would prepare her well-known pot roast, Dad would pour some wine, and we would chat about everything under the sun. I felt as if they were actually giving me attention for the first time in my life. "Tell us more about that new project you're working on," Dad would ask, really displaying some enthusiasm in my work for once. "The marketing effort is going well," I would respond, savoring the sense of being seen. "My manager believes it might attract some fresh business." But that all changed the evening Laura, my sister, dropped by for supper. 8 months pregnant, she entered, and as usual, the whole room turned to pay her attention. On the opposite side of town, Laura had been living in a little apartment. Not seen her since Adam's funeral. "Laura, sweetheart, sits here." Mom hurried to her side and softly moved me aside to make room for her preferred daughter. "Do you want yet another pillow? Have your feet swelled?" I disappeared into the background once again, just like that. I felt as if I disappeared. Their whole concentration was Laura and her pregnancy. That long-standing sense of being overlooked returned and stung. I felt I had passed it, but it came back really fast. "So, the father is who?" Trying to participate in the discussion, I inquired during supper. "Have you brought up the infant with him?" Laura's face transformed. She seemed irritated. She exclaimed fiercely, moving food around on her plate, "That is my business." I don't have to share my personal life with everyone. Mom started to protect her fast. "Jessica, do not probe. Your sister owes no one a justification." That struck me as rather different from their treatment of me. They constantly asked questions, offered advice I didn't ask for, and sought continuous updates while I was attempting to become pregnant with fertility medications. But they respected Laura's privacy without thinking about it. I asked once more later, at another supper, "But how would you be able to handle everything alone?" "Babies are costly." Laura waved her hand as if nothing. She started to show her typical haughtiness. "Not concern my kid or myself," she said boldly. "We won't need anything from anyone. All of it is under control." I ought to have noticed that grin more closely. Too many times had I seen it before. Laura was continually beginning something fresh, only for it to fall apart not long after. She lost 4 months' rent on a crypto investment, the life coach course she never completed, and there was a 3-week smoothie business. She added, stroking her baby belly with a confidence that ought to have alerted me, "Trust me, everything is going to happen just as I had intended this time." Dad gave her the expression as if she had discovered the treatment for a terrible illness. He stated boldly, "That's my girl. She usually manages to land on her feet." I nibbled into roast once again, attempting to stomach the too familiar sensation of being second best. I thought, seeing my parents clinging to every word Laura uttered, some things simply never change. Laura sent a call early on Friday. Looking over some marketing statistics at my desk, my phone flashed with her name. I almost didn't respond to it. Usually brief and a little uncomfortable, our conversations were. But for this moment, something caught my attention. Jess. She stated in that too sweet voice she employed when she wanted something, "I'm holding my baby shower at Mom and Dad's next Saturday. If you could come, I would most dearly adore it." That was not what I expected. We had our final meaningful chat at Adam's burial, and even then she appeared uneasy and preoccupied. "Verify yourself." Not able to suppress how startled I felt? I questioned. One hand could count the times Laura had ever asked me to anything. She laughed, of course, but it didn't sound natural. "You are the only sister I have. Without you, it wouldn't seem right. I also have something especially booked." Her words caused my gut to turn, but I brushed the sensation aside. "I will be there. Already, I am considering gift ideas. Perhaps this was her method of writing things between us." I arrived at my parents' place the next Sunday with 2 elegantly wrapped presents, an expensive baby monitor, and a handmade baby blanket. This was my future niece or nephew, even though Laura and I didn't always get along. The home seemed to have suffered a severe storm. Everywhere were pink and blue balloons, streamers draped from every wall. In the center of the room stood a massive diaper cake, adorned as it belonged at a formal reception. Let Laura turn this into a major celebration. There appeared to be half the town there. While Aunt Carolyn was talking with her children, Mom's bridge club buddies had taken over the couch, and Laura's former college companion stood by the punch bowl laughing over old memories. "Time for games," Laura cried out as she moved through the throng in a lovely pregnant dress, most likely worth more than my rent paid. She looked wonderful, but I felt uncomfortable with her grin. Her eyes stayed locked with me across the room, just too long. We played all the typical baby shower games, predicting her tummy size with thread, selecting a date for the baby's birth, and the ridiculous game including melted chocolate bars and diapers. Laura seemed unhappy about it when I turned out to be the belly measurement game champion. She continued staring at me in an odd manner throughout the gathering, like she was waiting for something. She made a great show of responding to every little baby item. Each onesie and gadget generated more enthusiasm than the previous once the present unwrapping began. She then came to my presents. She held up the blanket and lightly ran her fingertips over the pattern. A second later, she tapped her glass to get people noticed. The space became silent. Suddenly, my heart accelerated, and I had no idea why. The air seemed weighty, as if something were going to happen. One found it difficult to breathe. One hand resting on Laura's large tummy. I want to thank everyone for showing here today. I should also mention something else. It's time, in my opinion, everyone knew the father of my child. My heart began to race. Laura stared squarely at me, and I understood then exactly. I could hear it even before she spoke. But knowledge did not lessen the anguish either. She stated loudly, her voice filling the previously quiet room, "Adam Chastain is Jessica's late husband. My surroundings seemed to be slanted, still hearing people gasping and whispering over the loud ringing in my ears. Shock drove Aunt Carolyn to conceal her lips. Laura's college buddies gathered together and spoke hurriedly. Seeing the calm on my parents' faces, however, really offended me. They weren't shocked. They knew beforehand. Laura continued talking before I could start to grasp what was occurring. She turned to face me, and her voice exuded pride. "Since this is Adam's soul kid, I have half of everything he left behind right underhand. That relates to the home, the apartment, the money. My kid is due inheritance from their father." Everything turned whirlingly. I stopped myself from falling by grabbing the rear of a chair. Then my parents moved forward and positioned themselves on each Laura's side, as if they were shielding her. Dad added, speaking in a serious manner, "You have to do the right thing. Your nephew is due what belongs to him." I discovered my voice somehow, albeit it came out dry and scratchy. "You lies. You guys are all lying. Adam never would engage in this." Laura's grin altered. It descended into chilly and cruel. She opened her phone. "How, then, would you define this?" She raised the screen, and my entire universe collapsed once again. Adam and Laura were in one another's arms, kissing in what seemed to be a hotel room. Another photo showed them clasping hands at an unidentified eatery. Laura shouted loud enough for everyone to hear, "He adored me." He was meant to be leaving you for me. We had everyone scheduled to be told. Then she came to a halt. Her eyes swelled with tears and they started streaming down her cheeks. But then the disaster occurred, and all our ambitions gone. I couldn't breathe. I stopped to ponder. My body proceeded on its own. Pulling my pocketbook, I staggered out to my vehicle past the stunned visitors through the throng. I heard Mom yelling after me, but I was already pulling out of the driveway. The journey home was a haze. My mind continued playing those visuals over and over, attempting to comprehend them. The images at the restaurant must have been during those business meals Adam constantly spoke about. The hotel, probably one of the trips he mentioned were for business. My phone began vibrating the instant I went through the front door. Laura was sending me message after message, hundreds of them. They were screenshots of her discussions with Adam. I don't love her anymore. I haven't for a long time. Will inform everyone after the divorce. You're the only one I desire. I can't wait to start our lives together. My screen started to show one message after another, each one like a new gash to my heart. The dates on the mails revealed months of backtracking in their exchanges. All this time, while I was going through agonizing fertility treatments, believing I was the reason we couldn't have kids, my husband and my sister were preparing a new life without me. That night, I couldn't sit still. I wandered throughout my home, feeling Adam's stuff, gazing at the images on the walls, wondering whether any of it had been genuine. Had our entire existence together been a lie? At 6 a.m. promptly, the phone rang again. It was my parents. I let it ring a few times before picking up. "Jessica, you need to be realistic about this," Dad said, not even bothering to say hi. "The sooner you agree to give Laura her half of the inheritance, the simpler this will be for everyone." His chilly and confident voice made me upset. Easier for who? For Laura? For them? For all of us? Mom added. I noticed they had me on loudspeaker. "You don't want things to become nasty, sweetheart." I barely got the words out. "When did you know about them?" There was quiet. A silence that expressed more than words could. Finally, Mom spoke. "We've known for a while. Adam informed us about 7 months before the disaster." Her comments struck me like a blow. 7 months. They were aware for 7 months. And they pretended to console me as I sobbed at Adam's funeral at that period. Though they knew what Laura and him had done, they continued to steal the money I gave each month. Traitors. The word seemed chilly and final. "All of you?" I stopped the call and blocked their phones. My hands were trembling when I launched my banking app, but I didn't think twice. I halted the monthly payment I had been giving them. If they needed money, they could go ask their beloved Laura. 3 weeks passed, full with missed calls and unread texts. Then I received an email from Laura. She threatened she would sue me if I didn't give her half of all Adam left behind. She used the phrase willingly, but it seemed more like a threat. I couldn't bring myself to react. I couldn't even think about Adam's treachery or how many others must have seen them together while I remained in the dark. Things at work grew worse, too. The whispers began. Some coworkers gave me gloomy glances. Others struggled to disguise their grins. I could feel them chatting behind my back. Then Larry, my employer, and one of the few true friends I had left, summoned me into his office. I broke down right in the midst of a customer meeting. Larry, my supervisor, looked at me gently and said, "Take some time off. Paid or underpaid. Whatever works for you. Your job will still be here when you're ready to come back." I agreed, feeling grateful, and packed up my stuff that same day. The following several weeks all felt the same. I hardly left the home. I had my groceries delivered, didn't answer the door when it rang, and spent hours looking at old images, trying to see what indications I had missed. Every good memory now seemed phony. Every moment from my marriage was marred by the realization that Adam had been having a hidden life with my own sister. Then I discovered out on Facebook, Laura had given birth to a newborn boy. In the shot, she was smiling in her hospital bed. Our parents were standing by her, staring joyfully at their new grandchild. The infant was covered in the cream-colored blanket I had prepared for her baby shower. It felt like a smack in the face. I closed the app fast, but not before I noticed the baby's Adam Jr. A week later, a large envelope appeared in the mail. My hands trembled as I opened it. I already knew what it was. A court notice. Laura was suing me for half of all Adam had left me. She was arguing her kid deserved his father's wealth. The legal letter was cold and straightforward. She wanted the home, half the money, and part of the downtown flat. I spent 4 days seeking for the perfect lawyer before I hired Paul Heyman. He had a strong reputation for managing tough inheritance matters. Ms. Chastain, he began, sifting through documents on his desk, his expression serene but serious. I have to be honest. Your sister has substantial evidence that she and your husband had a long-term connection. There are text conversations, images, and even witness testimonies, even from your parents. He stopped to fix his spectacles. In circumstances like these, evidence of a close connection and a biological kid typically helps the court feel compassion for the child's side. I was still trying to grasp this dreadful news when my phone called that evening. It was an unknown number. "Hey," I said. "Is this Chastain, Jessica?" one lady inquired in voice. I didn't identify it, but something about the way she talked sounded uncomfortably familiar. "I'm Joyce Meyer, Adam's mother." The world felt like it slanted. I clutched the kitchen counter for balance. "That's impossible," I murmured. "Adam informed me he was an orphan. He claims his parents died when he was small. He claims he grew raised in foster care. I'm afraid that was another untruth," she continued, her voice caustic but not harsh. "Would you meet with me? There are things you need to know, things that could aid you." We decided to meet the following morning at a tiny cafe downtown, a neutral site. I arrived there early, my tummy full with trepidation. I got a coffee and waited. I couldn't even sip my coffee. My hands were trembling so terribly I nearly dropped the cup when she stepped in. The way she looked stunned me. Adam had her eyes, her smile, even the same beautiful manner of moving. She walked precisely like him. "I was at the funeral," she added when we sat down in a secluded table, distant from anybody who may hear us. I sat in the back row, wearing a black dress and veil. I couldn't force myself to talk to you then. Adam and I hadn't chatted in years. Suddenly, I recalled her, the calm lady who departed before the ceremony concluded. At the time, I was too deep in my sadness to think much about her. But now, the recollection was clear. The exquisite lady in black stands apart from the throng, her face veiled by a heavy veil. "Why are you telling me all this now?" I asked, trying not to seem too skeptical. After what I'd discovered about Adam, it was hard to trust anybody who had been close to him. Joyce went into her purse and took out a tattered manila envelope. The edges were bowed, like it had been carried about for a time. "Because I heard what your sister is attempting to accomplish," she said, "and because even with all that transpired, I don't want another lady to suffer because of my son's lies." Her fingers were trembling as she slipped the envelope across the table. I opened it gingerly, my hands shaking slightly. Inside were medical documents from Hartford General Hospital, dated 11 years ago, only a year before Adam and I were married. As I read the article, I felt the blood drain from my cheeks. Complete azoospermia. Permanently sterile. No probability of natural conception. The medical terms struck me like fists. Adam had taken this exam when he was 26. "He was sad after obtaining those findings," Joyce added gently. "It was one of the final things we ever spoke about before we stopped communicating. I couldn't utter a thing. All those years I had spent trying to become pregnant, going to doctor after doctor, having hormone injections, sobbing, hating myself. It had all been a horrible falsehood. Adam had knew he couldn't have children, but he never informed me. When the court day eventually arrived, the room was filled. Laura sat in the first row, lovingly cradling baby Adam Jr. Our parents were right next to her, appearing pleased and protective. She was dressed like the ideal mourning lady. Simple black outfit, scarcely any makeup, and a sorrowful, trained look on her face. When she took the stand, she played the character effectively. Her eyes glittered with tears as she spoke of her strong love for Adam. "All I want is what's fair for my kid," she added, her voice cracking. "He merits his father's heritage." My lawyer, Mr. Heyman, maintained cool and waited until she was done with her act. He started speaking. "Your Honor, I'd want to offer evidence that Ms. Ramsey's complete assertion is untrue." He stepped up to the judge and gave him the hospital paperwork. The judge went over the paperwork, her face displaying no expression. Laura's lawyer suddenly rose up, disputing over where the papers originated from and whether they were authentic. Laura's calm face eventually snapped. "Those documents are phony," she shouted, gripping the infant firmly. "She made them up to take my baby's inheritance." But Mr. Heyman kept cool. "Your Honor," he added, "these documents reveal that Mr. Chastain was not able to have children, so we are seeking for a DNA test to show who the genuine father is." Laura grinned like she had won. "That's not conceivable," she responded. "Adam was an orphan and his corpse was burned. There's no one to test." "Actually, Mr. Heyman answered, turning toward the throng. "I'd like to present Joyce Meyer, Adam Chastain's biological mother." Joyce stood up, and a shock of astonishment flooded the courtroom. Even from my position, I could see Laura's face grow pale. "I'm prepared to do a DNA test," Joyce stated firmly, "to find out if this baby is indeed my grandson." The judge nodded. "A DNA test is ordered. We'll meet again after the results are in." Laura looked as if she could pass out. She slanted in her seat. Her skin was pallid. Our mother came running to hold her up, glaring at me. But I had some modest optimism for the first time since this dream started. As the judge unsealed the envelope with the DNA test findings, the courtroom was still. Ignorant of anything going on, Laura sat rigidly in her chair as the infant slept blissfully in her arms. "The findings plainly reveal," the judge remarked in a firm voice, "that there is no genetic relationship between the kid and Mrs. Joyce Meyer. That indicates Adam Chastain is not the father of this kid." The entire room gasped. Laura's face sank, and she began weeping. Her mascara streamed down her cheeks. "Miss Ramsey," the judge continued, her voice now stern, "do you want to explain why you lied to this court?" Laura clutched the infant warmly. Her voice was feeble. "I was seeing more than one guy at the time. When Adam died and was cremated, I assumed no one would ever find out. He had money, and I needed it." "So, you attempted to defraud your own sister?" the judge asked harshly. "You even exploited your parents to aid with this deception." "I simply wanted my kid to have a happy life," Laura murmured. But this time, her act didn't work. Even her parents looked astonished, suddenly knowing exactly how far she had gone. The judge decided immediately away. "This court decides in Jessica Chastain, the defendant's favor. Laura Ramsey's all claims to the estate are permanently denied. Miss Ramsey, Mrs. Chastain is fortunate she hasn't sued for attempted fraud." My parents walked up to me outside the courtroom. Mom was sobbing, and Dad looked older than I had seen him. I had never seen Dad looking that elderly. Mom murmured, "Jessica, dear," grabbing for my hand. "We didn't realize Laura was lying. We want to put things right. We've been having a hard time since you stopped providing the monthly money." I put out my hand to halt her. "Don't, simply don't." Then I got out my phone, blocked their numbers right there in front of them, and walked away without looking back. Joyce was waiting by my vehicle. "Are you okay?" she inquired softly. To my amazement, I chuckled. "You know what? I guess I am. Or I shall be." I took a big breath. About the downtown apartment Adam left me, I have been considering. It never really appealed to me. Many memories too much. Still, maybe you might want it. Her eyes stretched out. "No, Jessica, I could not." "Please," I said with great conviction, "using those medical information you returned my life. Allow me to repay something in kind." 1 week later, I gave her the keys. She embraced me hard and began to weep. She muttered, "Never considering I would have a daughter." That was 4 months ago. My former family still attempts to reach me via distant relatives and common acquaintances. I have, however, severed those relationships too. Laura even sent a letter apologizing for her behavior and requesting assistance with the kid. I tossed it away without opening it. Rather, I spend weekly meals with Joyce now. We are gradually learning about one another and exchanging tales of Adam, the good and the evil. She is helping me to see that even if Adam was not the guy I thought he was, it does not discount all the joyful times we had. Yesterday, I at last packed Adam's remaining belongings. Joyce stored the remainder and helped me give part of it to a charity. She told me tales of Adam as a little child before all the falsehoods started as we worked. In some strange way, it worked. It helped one to think that he previously has a decent side as well, though I'm not ready to date once again yet. I have begun to live. I returned full-time to work, joined a hiking group, and even had my first solo trip under preparation. Sometimes I hardly see the lady looking back at me when I check in the mirror. Life surprises you in odd ways. I lost the family I was born into, but I discovered another I never would have thought possible. Though if that's the life I was destined to be living all along, it is not the one I intended.